be kind to yourself.
Yeah.
That's probably super important. It's exciting when you have your ideas or your techniques that you learn that make great sound. It's really exciting, and it makes you feel like you're on top of the world in your own little world. You feel that way, right? Mm-hmm. And then you go out and sometimes it falls flat. And, be kind to yourself and be kind to your band members, right? That was good. It was good. It was fine. Things happen sometimes. No, we're fine. It was good. That kind of thing. It took me a long time to learn that. We used to go off stage. We hadn't had a good gig, and we'd just be like, oh God, it was awful.
Vilifying each other?
Oh, well, no, we weren't going back and forth. It was silent.
Yeah.
We were all just kind of petrified with feeling terrible about what had happened, right? And don't do that to yourself.
Yeah.
Don't do it. It's stupid. Yeah, you're going to have bad gigs. That's all right.
Welcome to the Vocal Lab. I'm Sarah Ramsey, and this show aims to pull back the curtain on the entertainment industry, where veterans give up-and-coming artists some of the information they wish they'd had when they were just starting out. Sort of a music industry primer, if you will. Thanks for joining us on the Vocal Lab. This is actually part 2 of our interview. So if you haven't caught part 1 yet, head back to the episode right before this one and get all caught up, and then join us back here. We'll see you soon. Let's talk about the voice a little bit. Mm-hmm. The voice is an incredibly important instrument, and it's a bit different from mechanical instruments that live outside your body. So how do you care for your voice? What's your sort of daily routine? What's your typical pre and post show routine to keep? Because I have to say, you are at a very respectable age, and you have a voice that sounds like you're still 30 years old. And that doesn't come without putting some work into it.
Yeah, I guess that's probably true. And I have done that. I think also I've been lucky, genetically in that regard. But yeah, for years I went out on the road and especially when we were really getting into more sort of powerful music, I'd go out, I'd blow my voice in 2 nights. Mm-hmm. By the third day, I couldn't talk. I remember my road manager phoning, and I was still in bed, and the phone rang. I picked it up and went, uh-oh. That's right. And he went, oh, shit.
Yep.
And I got so I couldn't even talk. So I just, the 80s was a really bad time for me for that. It was really, really hard. I just couldn't make it work. So, I took lessons from different people, and it seemed to help a bit, but didn't make a huge difference. And then in the last, 20 years, I have taken lessons from Camille, right? Yep. My daughter Camille, who teaches voice, and she
fantastic voice teacher.
Yeah, she's good, and she helped a lot. And I got the Seth Riggs book, and I was working with that, and so I don't have the determination to do it every day. So I try to do it a week before a gig, start it a week before a gig, and then work every day. But only just like half an hour. That's what I do. Right. And I got a series of exercises. I do the exercises, and then bingo, I'm back doing other things. But it stabilizes things. Right. I don't smoke. I smoked for about 2 or 3 years in my 20s. And that was it. And I think that's really helpful for, depending on what kind of voice you want, but mine's a clear type voice. It's that type of voice, and it doesn't want smoke. It doesn't want drink, so I don't hardly drink at all. These days, 1 beer a day, because I like a really good quality beer. So, and I get lots of sleep. I often sing and play my guitar, so I'm not working on my voice, but I'm using it,
Yeah. Yeah.
So, that's really probably about it. Yeah, there are some things that I've learned that are useful, and when I'm doing my exercises, I employ those things. I make sure I try to pay attention all of the time while I'm doing it, because it's so easy to get bored and just have your mind drifting. And yes, I did all the scales and arpeggios, but I wasn't paying attention. You got to pay attention, right?
Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
Over the years, you may have spent a little bit of time on the road.
Yes.
And I think from afar, that looks like this super glamorous rock star experience. And from the inside, it can be quite a different thing. It's not necessarily all fancy hotel rooms and crazy green M&M riders, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's also sleeping on a bus crossing the prairies in December, or playing 50 shows in 2 months.
Yeah, right.
Whatever.
Stupid stuff. Yeah.
Those things can have some pretty harsh realities for singers around vocal fatigue and that kind of thing. What have you learned over the course of your career that makes for better vocal longevity as you're on the road?
Number one, I only do about two gigs in a row, maybe 3 at the most. Generally, I go out, fly someplace, we fly somewhere, we do 1 gig, we come home. Yeah. And then we maybe go out the next weekend or whatever, 10 days later, do another, maybe 2, come home. Yeah. That's number one. Number two, I'm in a position where I can ask for certain things from a presenter. So 2 nights of hotels, not 1, 2. Yep. So we get there. I leave in the afternoon from Vancouver and get there in the evening, generally early evening. We can have a dinner, then we sleep, get up in the morning, we have breakfast, and early sound check. If I can get it, noon. So we go in there at noon, we do our sound check, get everything the way we want it, and we're out of there by 1:30 at the latest. It usually takes us a half an hour to do a sound check, but depends. Yeah. So, and then we go back to the hotel, and then I eat my big meal. I don't eat my big meal before I go on stage. I eat my big meal at 2:00 or 3, and I make sure I got plenty and stuff that's going to last, right? And then we nap. We each have our own room. We don't room with anybody else. And I go and I nap. I'll nap for an hour and a half, something like that. Then I'll do my vocal exercise. When I get up, I'll maybe change my strings, whatever, that kind of thing. I'll wake up a bit, and then I'll do my vocal exercises, right? And then I may get a little bite to eat in a hotel restaurant, or maybe it's time to head to the show. We get to the show an hour before at the minimum, an hour to an hour and a half before we're on stage. Then the rider is set up so that you could get buns and a little bit of sandwich meat and a little bit of cheese, whatever, and you can make a little sandwich, right? So you just top up before the show. No alcohol before the show. And we do our vocal warm-ups together then in the trailer or whatever. So we've done that. We're ready. We joke around. Jerry gives a shit and we give it back to him, and we all have lots of fun. And we enjoy, that's us coming together as a unit. And that's super important. You can go out on stage and not know who you're playing with if you're not careful. Yeah. Right. So we just, we're in each other's face for a while, for, like a half an hour or 40 minutes before we go on stage. Then we go up and we're ready to go. Yeah. And those things are as ironclad as I can make them. Yeah. I fight for them. Right.
Absolutely. Well, and I think it's so important to know what those things are. And I'm sure it took years of doing it to determine what those things are that made the differences for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
some of them to be in a position in your career where you could ask for the things that mattered, because young artists can't do all of those things necessarily.
But young artists have got a ton of energy.
Absolutely.
It's a little different when you're on the other end of the age scale.
But I think it's really important to know what those things are and make a point of making them a priority, because that has contributed to the longevity of your career.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Absolutely. Totally. Yeah. Yeah. And you can, that's the thing, is to be able, I think a lot of bands feel that what they're doing is important, and that's great. That's how you should feel. And you should just really respect that. And just make sure you've got a situation that's working for you as much as possible. And yet there'll always be things that are trying to make it hard for you. And there'll be people who don't care and they don't do what they're supposed to do for you, et cetera, et cetera. But you just do your best to make things good,
Yeah.
Make it work for you. Yeah.
What else do you think contributes to the longevity of a career as an original artist?
Yeah. Maybe a need to do it. I think, I know that there's many, many people who never had a music career who have more talent than I do. I've got talent. I'm not belittling myself. I do, but there's people with a lot more, and some of them are not doing music. They're not in the music industry. Some of them because they had choices.
Yeah.
I celebrate the fact that I did not, because I couldn't do anything else. Right. and I either just couldn't do it, or I was too bored with it to put any time into it. So, it wasn't going to work. I tried being a bricky's helper. I worked in a stock auction. I did various things, at various times because I had to make money, but, including playing the American Songbook and, Hotel Vancouver, whatever floor up the top there that they had that was such a big deal. And we had to do those songs. And I was like totally bored. This is a gig where, you get played Happy Birthday 3 times a night, and that stuff. And yeah, I mean, we'd start laughing at the beginning of a song and we couldn't stop. So we were a strolling trio. So we were mobile. So we'd back into a corner and sort of lean over our guitars and shake. And then we'd get it together. We'd come back out into the room. So if you are easily satisfied, you might not have a career, because there's so many things that are easier than what we do. You've got to want it.
I've heard my brother put it in a way that I loved the language he used for it. He said, if there's anything else that you can do, and the unspoken subtext was anything else you could do and still find like happiness in your life. Yeah. If there's anything else that you can do, you should do that.
You'll have a better time.
Yeah. If there's anything else that you can do that's going to make you as happy as this, then you probably don't have the drive it's going to take to be successful at this.
Well, that's it. And that's kind of what I was saying.
Yeah.
You have to need it.
Yeah.
You have to, because if you don't have other options and you need it for your soul that badly, some people do, then that's kind of how you get there, right? Yeah, that's it. And I think that, a lot of that reminded me of something that, you hear about a lot of times where, famous actors or whatever, I knew some, and they'd have to puke before they went on stage, because they're so nervous and upset and so feeling like they're not going to do a good job and that they're going to blow it all over the place. And then they go out and they're freaking amazing.
Yep.
Because they have to be. It's the only way to survive.
Yeah.
They have to be that good, or they're going to feel really horrible. Yeah. So they really work hard. People in that with that kind of response to it. And
Want to talk a little bit about songwriting? I mean, you've served as past president of SOCAN and Songwriters of Association of Canada. So I can't really imagine a better person to ask about songwriting. You can talk about the art of it, or the mechanics of, what does an up and coming artist need to understand about the life of a song, from writing or co-writing right through to registering and licensing and onward. And where do the people make all of the mistakes?
Good question. That's a good question. Where do the people make all of the mistakes? The first and most frequent mistake is not having a great song.
Well, okay, fair enough.
That'll be
Absolutely.
number one. So and you're not going to know. So you're just going to plow forward. That's what you're going to do. And, I'm not going to talk to you about social media because I know nothing about it. I'm not going to talk to you about how to market your songs in this century because I know nothing about it. And, all I can say is that there are certain things that I think have not changed. And of course, the first one is the song itself. And even though styles change, there is something about certain songs that makes them, you say, oh, well, that's because they played it all the time. Yeah, but they played it all the time because it worked, because people wanted to hear it, Yes, they played it all the time. Become a SOCAN member. It costs you nothing. It's free. And SOCAN has millions, literally millions and millions of songs that it tracks.
Yeah.
And that not only does it track in Canada, but similar organizations in virtually every country of the world are tracking your songs too, if they happen to be playing there. And they send that information back to SOCAN. And SOCAN is really important for another reason, and that is that the board of directors of SOCAN, who basically set the terms of how it works, are 50% writers. And I don't know, the record companies generally don't have writers on board unless there's a writer like, a huge, and they can get them on the board. Yeah. So, but most music industries do not include creative people on their board of directors. Creative people on the board of SOCAN keep SOCAN focused the right way.
Yeah.
And it's nine writers and 9 publishers. And if an extra publisher comes on, then an extra writer has to come on. If an extra writer comes on, then an extra publisher has to come on. So you got this balance between industry and creative.
Yep.
And so SOCAN is a treasure in that way. It's called an authors' rights organization, and most authors' rights organizations around the world have writers on their boards. The BMI is one of the few that does not. It was started by the radio industry, and they assiduously avoided having creative people on their board, writers and other flakes. Anyways.
It's fair. Creatives don't always make the best board members.
Well, you learn though. When I went on there, I was on the SOCAN board. It was 1989, and I lasted for 23 years. And I was a thorn in their side for quite a while. Yeah. I didn't know how it worked. And I was extremely suspicious, and I just demanded answers for everything. And I just wouldn't shut up until I got the answer. Right. Yeah. And so, but I was, I'm a relatively kind person and a relatively polite person. So I wasn't stupid about it, but I just would not give up. If something didn't sound right to me, they had to explain it in a way that it would sound right to me. Right. And
you're the guy that artists want fighting on their side.
Yeah, this guy. Yes. And there's lots of us there. There are a lot of artists that have that kind of, you're trained for that. Like you go into a studio, you can't stop at, the first thing that comes up. You got to get the right thing, and it takes a bit of discipline to do that. And so we do that. And so you can go on a board and you don't have to know everything. You'll learn it. They taught me. Me. It took years, and they saw that I was not someone filled with hate.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe there was some possible future on having this guy on the board, and certainly if we could make him happy, and life would be a lot easier. And so they took care of me, and the guy who was the head of the organization, Michael Rock, was a total sweetheart. He put up with me, and he kicked me under the table when I said the wrong thing. Because I ended up going to being the president and going to lobby in Ottawa, for writers, and they taught me all of that. So they will, and they will do that, and so it's good. It's a really good thing. You know what? The authors' rights organizations were started by an author. He was a Frenchman named Beaumarchais. And Louis somebody Caron Beaumarchais. I can't remember all of his names. Yes, quite a few. He wrote The Marriage of Figaro and The Barber of Seville. Mm-hmm. Mozart turned them into operas. He wrote them as plays. Mozart turned them into operas only a few decades afterwards, not long. Mm-hmm. And when Beaumarchais wrote these things, and he knew he had something, he went to the Paris, the biggest production company in Paris that put on plays, right? And because he wanted them to do it. So he took it there, and they said, okay, all right, yeah, we'll do this. Here's the contract. And they handed him the contract, and he read it, unlike many creatives. He read it. And I used to do that very same thing. He read it and he went, okay, so there's a clause here that says that if this play draws less than whatever it was, 40% maybe, house 2 nights in a row, that you get to own the play? And they said, oh yeah, that's the way it is. Everyone signs it. That's the deal. He said, ain't the deal for me. And, he said it in French, of course. Anyways, he gathered other like-minded writers, and they weren't all like-minded. A lot of them were just, well, this is the world and this is what you got to live with, right? But there were others that were ready to say, no, that's bullshit. We're not doing that, right? We're not doing that. It's not yours. And it will never be yours. It's mine. So they created this organization, which exists to this day. Mm-hmm. And he got authors' rights signed into legislation by Napoleon. Wow. And this man could talk to Napoleon, because I'm just going to do a little sidetrack here. It won't take too long, but it's really interesting. Beaumarchais was an interesting character. He was financial advisor to Louis XVI. Yeah, I think it's 16. He was the last Louis, I think, because he's the one who lost his head. And he was also a military advisor to Louis XVI. Oh. And when the Americans had their revolution in the 1700s, whatever it was, Louis, no, I don't know if it was Louis. Yeah, Louis. Yes, it was him. He wanted to supply the Americans with armaments, because it was the English they were fighting with. And after all, if someone would beat the English for the French, they would really appreciate it, right? So the Americans had blockaded the harbor. I think it was Boston Harbor. And Louis asked Beaumarchais if he could find a way to get around the blockade so that they could get armaments. And he did, and they did. And the Americans later came, a couple decades later, I think, came to Paris and thanked the French and Beaumarchais for doing that, right? So here you've got this man who writes Marriage of Figaro and Barber of Seville, two of the biggest plays ever. They still play, and the operas still play. Who started the first authors' rights organization. Now they're in every country, and SOCAN is one of the ones that came out of all of that. Yeah. And he helped with the American Revolution. It's like, and he got Napoleon to sign authors' rights into, hello, this guy was a ball buster. Right? He was a freaking ball buster, and we can be that. Yeah. We need to be that. We need to know what's right, and then we need to put our shoes on and get out there and do it, right? Yep. Make things right. So, screenwriters, don't let them take your rights. Don't let them say that don't let the producer of the movie say that he's the writer of the music. Don't do that. Yeah. Don't do it. Because you know what you're doing? You're undercutting everything that Beaumarchais and all the people after him set up. Yeah. So stick by your rights. Yes, you'll lose work. Big deal. We've all lost work.
Yeah, you gotta pick your battles, right?
You got to pick your battles,
and some of them are important.
Yeah, yeah. Don't erode things that are actually working for you now. That are actually helping your life and your career. Anyway, that's my thought on that. I had another story I wanted to tell you, but I can't remember what it is anymore. Okay.
Well, if it comes to you, by all means.
Yeah.
So we talked a little bit ago about the concept of all performing artists in every genre. Not even just performing artists, all artists, I think, are storytellers. Their mediums are different. I think as musicians and singers and songwriters, we are in a unique position around storytelling. So I'm interested in how you approach the concept of storytelling in your writing or your performing, like we talked a little bit about it before, but about that connection to the audience.
I have many times had stories I wanted to tell and I never could do it. And then songs came out and I didn't know what they meant. Mm-hmm. And now I see that they were stories. Mm-hmm. And I see what people might have, Baby Blue came out in one sitting. It was one of those songs. Mm-hmm. And I see that there are women out there in the audience, who it means a lot to. And if you look at the lyrics of those songs, you know what they might be thinking and what they've experienced, that song, what they've experienced. And so I respect that. And I respect whatever Muse it was that told me to say that, because I don't know who it was, but I have gradually learned also to tell stories, in a knowing way. And that All Right, that song All Right is one of those where I knew what I wanted to say. And then I realized that it wasn't going to go over that well the way I had originally framed it. Mm-hmm. I still can use most of the same words. So their sound and everything is still intact, but I can just shift it a little bit. And I learned that from people like Jimmy Einer, who had the record company we had in the States when we were doing Gone Gone and stuff like that. He understood that sort of symbolism in the songs and how they strike people. He wouldn't let me write a song with a woman's name in it, which is hilarious. I thought he was going a bit far on that. But anyway, he said, what you've done is you've excluded everyone who's not called Jennifer or whatever the name was. No other woman is going to take that as her song. How could she? It's not her name. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that was the kind of thinking that he had. And again, I don't agree with that one particularly, but I understand the basic intent of what he was saying, that it's important for the song to be theirs. It's important for it to be theirs. So, and you said earlier how, you need to say it in a way that people can, they can feel good about. I can't remember exactly what you said, but it was something like that. And the result of it was that a person could feel good about your song. And generally that means that they can relate to it, that it feels like it's theirs, that kind of stuff.
It feels inclusive rather than.
Yeah. And that's not about the point of the story. That's about how you tell it. Yeah. Right? So you got to say it in a way that people are interested and they're like, and feel comfortable. Like, this is nice. Then you put your story in, but you don't put it in. And now I'm going to tell you what I really mean. And say this really bad thing. You don't do that. You don't do that. Yeah. You use metaphor. You use various ways of saying what you're saying without saying it too brutally, honestly, you don't want to be brutal. It's not what people want. Yeah. And so it's how you tell it. And Yeah, I'm really bad with that kind of thing because I really take things literally at face value. When people say them to me, I just take them at face value. I don't think, what do they really mean by that? I don't do that. And a lot of people are doing that all the time. And a lot of people are talking that way all the time. They're expecting you to go beneath the surface and understand what they said. My neighbor came over. We were burning, had our burn pile going. And he's a great guy. I really like him. He came over and he says, "Your smoke is my smoke." And I thought, wow, what an incredible turn of phrase. That's interesting. And I, don't know what he means by it, but wow. Yeah, man, how are you? It's like, and then, like hours later, I went, oh, it would be nice if he wasn't getting so much smoke over there.
Right.
That's what I'm hearing. That's what he said. That's storytelling, right? Yeah. That's storytelling. Yeah. Like you don't make a person feel like, well, fuck you. You don't create that energy, right?
Community and support versus competition in show business. We work in an industry that can be very cutthroat because it is a very competitive industry. Mm-hmm. What has your experience been, and how do you think we can foster a more supportive community?
I think we are doing or have done that. I always felt like in my career, it was very, very competitive, and it was, it made you greedy and made you, not trust and all of that stuff. And it was not good. I really wish I had known better. And I was amazed to meet the next generation. When I started doing solo work, it was the venues for solo work were folk clubs and folk festivals. So I'd go out and do those, and I mostly didn't play the really hard-ass Chilliwack stuff. I'd play Lonesome Mary, and I'd play Reno, and I'd play Fly at Night and stuff like that, little gentler kind of stuff. So anyway, while I was out there doing that, I met all these people like, Barney Bentall, Jeff Kelly with Spirit of the West, the guys in the band, and many other artists that seemed to not be bothered with that stuff. They were so warm. They were really nice. They were nice to each other. They were really nice to me. I hadn't really experienced that, right? In the industry. So something happened. I don't know quite how it happened. I don't know how it happened, but they had this, and I really appreciated it, and I still do. And I still work with those people on various things, and, various times we get to perform together, and it's so much fun. It's great. Maybe, I'm not sure. I really don't know how that happened. Was it because by then the way Canada supported its artists, like with the hate to say it, but taxpayers' money, that they supported Canada supported its artists because they were operating in a very competitive environment, and it was an international environment, and it was largely an American environment, and you couldn't get the time of day in the States a lot of times, right? Yeah. You had to play their ball busting game to do it, and maybe because of all that support, people started to be able to relax more. I'm not sure. I don't know. I wish I knew, but it was a cool thing. And I found the industry pretty corrosive, really.
Yeah. Well, maybe we'll just finish up with a couple of quick, they can be quick questions.
Yeah.
What is the most unexpected way you've used your talents in the course of your career?
Oh, okay. Here's one that might be unexpected.
All right.
When we were the jam band, and this would have been in 70, 71, something like that, we had a gig in Calgary with Eric Burden and War. So we were opening for them. And I guess Eric's roadies didn't like, maybe we must have gone overtime or something because they pulled our plugs. And so the
subtle.
guitar, really subtle. Yeah. Would you mind? So they pulled our plugs, but that just lost us guitar and bass. The PA system, the plugs were way out there, right? And they might have had a little trouble doing it because it wasn't being run by their guys. It was being run by the PA company, who might not have appreciated that. And they figured we were defenseless, so they could pull our plugs. So brilliantly, Ross continued to play. We're in the middle of a jam and we're just smoking, right? And he's going like this, and all of a sudden the bass and guitar go. He just keeps playing. He keeps playing. He's sort of soloing a little bit, like, oh, this is my solo, right? And he keeps going. And I said to Cliff Jones, I don't know if you remember Cliff, but he was our roadie at that time, or a road manager. And I said, he was at the side of the stage. I said, Cliff, get those metal garbage cans from the dressing room and bring them up and give Claire one and me one. So he did. And we laid them down on their sides, and we got the mics, which are still working, the vocal mics, and we got them down by the garbage cans, and we had drumsticks. We started to play with Ross, right? Bang, 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 bang. And we're all going like this. And then we lean into the mics. One of us leaned into the mics and started, they pulled our plugs. So we told the whole story. So they found out what was going on. The audience knew what was going on. They went freaking ape.
Yep.
So our talents to respond, I guess it was, to weird circumstances were tested there, and we did a good job.
And it sounds like maybe you need writing credit for the original show Stomp.
Oh,
right? Where they played on all the garbage cans and stuff.
Did they? Oh, could be. Yeah.
Okay, well, this might answer the next question, which is weirdest gig.
This was before we even had a record contract. We weren't known as the Collectors at that point. We were the Torch Cabaret House Band.
Rolls right off the tongue.
Doesn't it? It's full of imagery, and it burnt down. But it was 5 nights a week, and or 6 nights a week, probably. Yeah, I think it was probably 6 nights a week, and it was 3 or 4 sets a night, something like that. And we got a gig. Oh, I know. We actually were the Collectors. By then we'd done a record, but we were still playing the Torch because I had to earn a living, right? So we were still playing the Torch. Our record was out. It was looking at a baby. And we got a gig up at SFU playing for the students up there. So we went up and we started playing, and I don't know what happened, but at a certain point, the most reviled song that in our world for us was Louie Louie. So at a certain point, I just started going boom, 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 and we all went, oh my God, this is, because the gig was kind of silly. Like the people, it was a stupid gig. So we started playing stupid music, right? And then we all got in a conga line, and we started going in around the stage, like in this conga line. I don't know how we managed the chords, but I do remember doing that and just doing Louie Louie. And it was crazy. It was fun. Yeah. And
on the other end of the spectrum, best gig or favorite gig?
Yeah. The favorite works into unusual pretty much most of the time in my mind. And so I'll tell you about one. It was it was in Pasadena, and we were playing with Vanilla Fudge, and It's a Beautiful Day. It's a Beautiful Day started, and then we were to go on, and then Vanilla Fudge. So when it was time for us to go on, Howie and Glenn were nowhere in sight, and we had to go on. So Claire and I and Ross, what became the trio, went up.
I wonder why.
Yeah. And we just started to play. We went, okay, we'll just play. We'll play. And we got into this stuff. We got it going. It was really smoking. It was great. We were having a great time and doing all kinds of things we didn't expect to do, and really loving it. And the audience was loving it too. It was great. And then Howie and Glenn came running up, and running up onto the stage and got into it too. Mm-hmm. And so when we ended, the audience, they went crazy. It was great. And then we went, oh, what do we do? Should we do another jam? And Ross said, no, let's do the suite. So we did the What Love Suite after that. And they went ape after that, right? Yeah. And then we down and we're walking across, we're just walking through the crowd, right? Walking through the crowd to our dressing room, and Vanilla Fudge and Carmine Appice was the lead guy, right? The drummer. And they were coming out, and he just says, we just do what we do. We do what we do. So, yeah, that was a good gig.
Yeah.
And we often did well with surprises and curveballs,
I think that sense of safety within a band. So knowing that you can take a left turn and they're going to come with you. Yeah. That nobody's going to let anybody else fall on their face. Right. Because everybody's going to be everybody else's safety net. Yeah. And you can go places. If you don't have that sense of safety, it's really hard to go on musical adventures. Yes, it is. Yeah. You have to be so attentive to what everyone expects. Yeah. 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 Well, is there anything else that you think is really important for up and coming artists to know that we haven't touched on today? Be kind to yourself. Yeah. That's probably super important. It's exciting when you have your ideas or your techniques that you learn that make great sound. It's really exciting, and it makes you feel like you're on top of the world in your own little world. You feel that way, right? Mm-hmm. And then you go out and sometimes it falls flat. And, be kind to yourself and be kind to your band members, right? That was good. It was good. It was fine. Things happen sometimes. No, we're fine. It was good. That kind of thing. It took me a long time to learn that. We used to go off stage. We hadn't had a good gig, and we'd just be like, oh God, it was awful. Vilifying each other? Oh, well, no, we weren't going back and forth. It was silent. Yeah. We were all just kind of petrified with feeling terrible about what had happened. Right. And don't do that to yourself. Yeah. Don't do it. It's stupid. Yeah. You're going to have bad gigs. That's all right. You need to expect those, because just expect them. They're not going to happen. No way. Everybody has them. Absolutely. We blew Jeff Beck off the stage one time. He had a bad night. It's the only way. We did pretty good, but he did terrible. And I'm sure he wasn't too happy about it, but you just keep on. The next night's probably going to be great. Yeah, shit happens. Yeah. Yep. So I really appreciate you joining me today, Bill. Where can people find you on the great wide interwebs? I know you're not so much a social media guy, but where do they find you, or find out about any upcoming shows or anything along those lines? Yeah, I'm really bad at even that. But we do have a Facebook page, and we got a website. I haven't been there in a long time. I hope they're okay. I'm sorry. I just can't do it. I just can't do it. Gone.com. That one's an easy one. Do you know what it is on Facebook? No, but if you go Chilliwack official page, that's what it's called. Yeah, it's Chilliwack official page. And then my page is The Real Beel, REALBEEL. Okay. And we'll link those in the show notes. Yeah. And, sometimes they come to me when people write things. So then I go on and check it out, Yeah. So, yeah. Okay. Right on. Well, listen, thank you. Yeah. Thank you, Sarah. It was fun.